Welcome to this episode of the Chase Impossible podcast. First things first, happy holiday weekend to those in the U.S. Today's July 3rd, tomorrow's July 4th, so I'm sure a lot of people are going to have a good time this weekend. We'll kick things off with obsessions. Also, if you are not subscribed to the Marketing 168 newsletter, go ahead and subscribe to that. You can go on my website, chasekilby.com, and that's where you can subscribe to that newsletter. New format for the podcast moving forward. If we have awesome guests, of course, they're going to come on board. But if we don't have guests, I'm going to cover what's in my weekly newsletter, just in an audio setting on the podcast. So if you're not familiar with the structure of the newsletter, the Marketing 168 is my current obsessions, my current observations, and then my goals for the week. So I recap on my previous week, talk about what I'm interested in this week, and I send that out every week. So if you're not subscribed, again, go to my website, chasekilby.com, check that out. But if you're not and you don't want to subscribe, no big deal. If you listen to the podcast, you'll hear the same information on here. So I'll start with obsessions this week. My biggest obsession this past week was The Algebra of Wealth, Scott Galloway's new book, The Algebra of Wealth, A Simple Formula for Financial Security. I read this through Audible, so I listened to this, which is how I do all my reading these days. And this book was fantastic. I'm a big fan of financial, self-help, business books, but this one was really easy to read, easy to understand, and I liked it because it's new. It was published in 2024, which is really nice. Sometimes I read those books that came out in the 1970s, and while the advice still may be sound, it just can feel a little outdated in the language and some of the ideas and things of that nature. So this one came out in April, and if you're unfamiliar with Scott Galloway is a marketing professor at NYU Stern. He's a founder, investor, board member. He's an author, obviously, but he has more than just the book that I'm talking about here. He has over 4 books. He's got quite a few. He has The Algebra of Wealth, The Simple Formula for Financial Security. That's the one I just read. He's got a book called The Four, The Algebra of Happiness, Adrift, Post-Corona. He's got quite a few books. How I originally got on to Scott Galloway was his TED Talk that came out in the past couple months, and that TED Talk's called How the U.S. is Destroying Young People's Future. Obviously, I had to click on that because I was curious. But as he got into it, it was really interesting. It's about 18 minutes and 37 seconds. I highly recommend checking that out as well on TED's website, TED Talk website, or on YouTube. That's where I watched it. And it's just a very thorough breakdown of what's going on in the U.S. economy, how things are changing, how things are developing, higher education. It's fantastic. And his presentation style is entertaining as well, so I enjoyed that. He's also the host of multiple podcasts. You may know him from the Prof G podcast, which is one of the top podcasts on Spotify. So he's the host of that one, as well as the Pivot podcast. So it's safe to say Scott Galloway is a good resource for business insights and financial insights and everything of that nature. And this book is no exception to that. It was fantastic. Highly recommend this read to anyone interested in career growth and financial learning. It kind of covers both of those. It starts out more in the career side, and then it kind of moves more into the financial side. So it's split into 4 sections. I won't go too far into it because obviously I don't want to give away any secrets of the book. You got to read it. But that was my current obsession this week. I finished it probably in 3 days of listening to it during commutes and during times where I was kind of just doing busy work and I could pay attention to the book. So highly recommend checking that book out. As for observations this week, we're diving into artificial intelligence in SERPs, or search engine results pages. So, it started for me a few months ago. I have an iPhone, and I use the Google Chrome app for my browsing the internet on my iPhone. And a few months back, I was researching something. In my newsletter I reference, I was researching how to get more backspin on my golf shot, which is something I'm still researching, still trying to figure that out. But a few months back, maybe February or March, I would Google something, and all of a sudden the AI-generated results would pop up ahead of any of the actual search results. And, at first I scrolled right past it, and I was like, that's dumb. The robot's not going to know how to get backspin on my golf ball. Why would I look at that? Let's go to some more reputable sources like Golf Digest or WikiHow or Reddit or really anything. And so that's where I started with artificial intelligence popping up in the search engines. And come to today, it is now July of 2024, and I continue to reference it more often. I when I'm asking simple questions like how to fix something in the house or fix something in the car or, any high level basic information, it's really useful because it pops up. I don't have to do any hunting to find the right answer through articles, even, the featured snippets sometimes that pop up from the structured, the schema markup stuff. That stuff is nice as well, but it's not always accurate, and you don't get that every time you're searching for something. So I just had an interesting observation of how only took me about 3 months to really come around to the idea of, hey, AI is going to generate an answer. It's going to pop up before any of these articles or anything that people actually put work into and research and thought into, and it's going to spit out a good answer. So I just thought this was really interesting, and it just had me thinking, what is SEO going to look like moving forward? I think there's always going to be a need and a value. I think there's always going to be value in having content that is centered around a certain topic that allows your website to play as an authority in that space. But, when I'm Googling something, the less clicks and the less brain power it takes me to find an answer, the better. And the more and more AI continues to improve, the more that's going to be the source of power for that. So again, just my observation of the week, trying to figure out what that's going to look like. I'm really curious what that'll look like in the next 5 years. Will Google and Bing be the dominant players? Will there be new players? Will OpenAI have their own browser? Will new AI startups have their own browsers? I'm just curious, how that's going to go. With that being said, I fully embrace AI, and I use it quite often. I've been using ChatGPT daily, and I have conversations with myself through a ChatGPT chat room. And, people may say that's strange. I've even caught myself being like, this is really weird. I'm just talking to a robot. But then I really sat back and I was thinking about it, and I was like, I have the opportunity to bounce ideas off of the most intelligent person in the world. Because that's really what a ChatGPT chatbot is they know everything for the most part. Obviously, there's holes for sure, but they know more than just about anybody in the world. They know more than definitely anybody in the world, and it can spit these answers back to you in less than a minute. So I've been enjoying that, just using ChatGPT just when I have a thought and I want to get more thoughts on it, shoot it in there and just see what it says. It has zero judgment, which is nice. There's no thoughts coming back at you and opinions and insecurity like some people may have, but it's got a lot of good stuff. And I think, everyone may be a little on edge of AI, but I do think there's good things coming from it. But again, that's my observation for the week. Curious to see what happens there. And rounding out the last section here, goals. So my goals for the coming week, I would like to log at least 15 miles in my Strava app. We're going to see if we can do that. I want to have a new article published for Peak to Creek Outdoors by the end of next week. If you're unfamiliar, peaktocreekoutdoors.com is my hobby website that I built where I publish articles about everything outdoors from hunting to camping. Check that out. So I'm going to have a new article published by the end of next week. And then lastly, I'm going to try and reach out to 5 new people that inspire me. I'm not sure what that's going to look like yet, but I just know by the end of next week, I'm going to make sure I reach out to 5 new people that inspire me, make sure that I let them know they inspire me, and see if we can't learn some stuff from each other. So that's it for this week. Again, check out my website, chasekilby.com. Subscribe to the newsletter, Marketing 168, so you can read all this good stuff early. The newsletter comes out before the podcast comes out, so if you do want to get access to this wonderful random information that I share each week early, you can subscribe to that. Until next week, have a good holiday weekend.